The point is that basically the rules have changed. You know, our relationships have been fundamentally disrupted with smartphone technology and digital technology in the last 5 years. And so today is about what can we do as families, as parents, as children, as brothers, sisters, whatever our relationships are, in relationships to technology, to make it healthy, to make it positive, make it work for us, instead of make it, destroy everything, including ourselves. So I want to welcome the panel up to the stage now. With us today, panel, okay, thank you. With us today we have Dr. Alan Greene right here. He is a leading pediatrician and author of Raising Baby Greene and Feeding Baby Greene. He's also a national advocate for healthy kids and families. Next to him we have Dr. Tanya Altmann, who's also a leading pediatrician. She has a lead role in Dr. Oz's Share Care and is a television personality helping kids and families nationally to be healthy. And then finally, Katie Chin, who's at the end. She's a chef, author, and also does many appearances on TV. She makes healthy food accessible and easy, and I love that. She's into food and technology and health, and so I'm really excited to have such a wonderful, illustrious panel here to discuss this very, very important topic. Let's welcome the panel. All right, so first question is, relationships. As I talked about, our relationships are, completely being scrambled by this technology, the smartphone technology, texting. Different generations prefer different means of communication, that kind of thing. What would you say are some of the ways that this technology is maybe challenging families as well as giving opportunities to improve our relationships within our families?
Well, texting is a pretty obvious one. The texting etiquette among kids, especially in middle school and high school right now, is it's okay to be looking away from everybody and texting whatever you're doing. There's texting at the dinner table, there's texting in conversations. They pull out and look things up on a smartphone, even in the middle of a conversation. So it can be a real problem. On the other hand, it can connect. We stay coordinated as a family because of technology.
Right on. What would you guys add to that? What have you seen?
Yeah, so, I agree. In some ways, it can be great because parents can stay in touch with their kids at after-school programs, pick me up from track practice. This is what I'm doing. A friend of mine, her boys just traveled around the world after college backpacking, and they actually texted her what they were doing, and they would ask her questions. Should I do this or this? And I remember when I was backpacking through Europe, I would have never thought to ask my mom, where I should go. So she's still involved in their life. But again, you do miss out a lot on some of that communication when everyone's sitting around the dinner table, not having a family discussion. So that's why the dinner table, in addition to the bedroom, is one of the places where I usually recommend it's a media-free zone, because you really still need to make sure that you teach your kids how to look someone in the eye and have a conversation. And when they think, oh, I want to look that up, they don't have to do it right away. It's okay to keep a running list of things you want to go home and look up.
Well, let's just check in the audience. Who has ever had somebody ignore you because they're looking at their phone? Pretty much 100% of people in the audience have that experience. So, Katie, what is your experience of that in your family? And also, what do you think technology does for your family, to connect people?
Well, I think it's definitely a blessing and a curse, as we're all saying. I don't know about you, all of you, but often I'll be sitting at my table on my phone, and then I look up and every single person at the table is on their own device. And this could go on for 10 or 15 minutes. So that makes me sad. But by the same token, we do things together as a family through We Fit, which is amazing because we exercise together and it's really fun. And through apps like Cozy, we're all connected. And I could put everything that I need at Costco and my husband just picks it up and he buys everything. So it can be very convenient, keep us connected, but at the same time, I think you just need to set limits.
Great, yeah. And I know a lot of people in the family are grappling with energy levels or activity levels using technology. Some technologies can increase activity levels and some can decrease activity levels. So what would you guys say are sort of the best practices within families for increasing activity levels using technology?
Well, I think, the gamification of a lot of these trackers, I think, is really key. If you can get every family member involved and participating so they feel like they all have a role, I think that is a really good step.
Yeah. I see some children in my office that may be a little more sedentary and enjoy watching TV. One of the ways to get them more active is through some of the active video games. And again, you still need to put limits on it. But I know, like when my son does the half-an-hour run on Wii Fit, he is sweating at the end. So I feel like, okay, it's still different from when he goes out and plays outside, but at least he is getting some cardiovascular activity. But again, you definitely want to limit it and encourage your kids to do all sorts of activities.
Yeah, I think one of the important things today, because the electronic media are so seductive, and they're fun, they're stimulating, they give you all this reward for doing it, that it's important, not limiting that, sure, but really making sure you make time for other kinds of really powerful, fun things. Make sure kids do get outdoors. It's a minimum time they get outdoors to play and have fun, a minimum time that they're sitting around a table and eating real food as a family or having conversations. And then, as much as possible, to find activities that are technologically exciting that bridge real activity in the real world. We've had a great time with Zombie Run, which is a fun story. It takes you from a couch to 5K. You go and it's great fiction while you're running.
I love Zombie Run too. Thank you for mentioning that. So what about parenting skills? So, a lot of this boils down to, as parents, you never had to, go through this. The older generation didn't have to go through any of this. There's no role modeling around any of this. So I feel like this new generation of parents, these young people, those young people that were there, have to make up things on the fly. So how do we approach that?
Sure, and I just got back from the National American Academy of Pediatrics Conference in Orlando, and one of the new policy statements that came out was on forming a family media use plan. And as a pediatrician, media is something that I have to talk about at every visit now. So it's not just, are your kids eating healthy? Are they getting enough sleep? Are there any medical issues? How are they doing in school? Then we also have to talk about media. And so I talk to families about making a family plan. And it might be different for every family, but it involves setting limits, not only on the time, because there's the quantity of media use, but also the quality. So you want to make sure that what your children are using does have some educational benefit, and then also putting limits on where in the house it can be. So for instance, not at the dinner table, and have an electronic curfew an hour before bedtime, all media out of the bedrooms and turned off. That way everyone can make sure that they get enough sleep.
And the out of the bedroom thing actually is pretty important for a couple of reasons. One is that's where a lot of the mischief online tends to happen. But the other is that we've had a real problem with sleep in the United States in the last few years. Kids are sleeping much less. They're chronically sleep deprived. It's not good for their health. It's not good for their behavior. It's often misdiagnosed as ADHD. It is not good for academic learning. And media use, a screen right in front of your eyes, drops your melatonin levels often for the rest of the night, and it disrupts sleep. So you really want that 1 hour curfew, even better 2 hours if you can do it. Or choose screens that don't have the wavelength of light that stimulates melatonin, the blue wavelength.
I wonder how many people have had melatonin drops in the audience here due to technology as well.
And almost every tween or teen, when I say in my office, and where do you keep your phone at night? And they say by their bed, and I explain how it should be out of the room. They say, well, it's my alarm clock. So my answer is go buy a $10 alarm clock at Target.
I'm going to do that for my daughters because that's exactly the excuse they use. I have 2 teenagers and they have phones in their room plugged in at night, and I don't know how to get them to stop. It's not them. Their friends text them until midnight, and they're on these group texts, and so it's, even if one kid stops, another kid will keep going. So
I'm going to get one for me. I think the definition of screen time can definitely put strain on any marriage, because I think parents have different philosophies on what that means. So I think some parents feel that, they're doing an educational app on the iPad, that's fine, but they're doing it for 2 hours. That's not okay. So I think really having an honest conversation about what that actually means to you, I think is really important. Also, I saw my doctor yesterday, and he had a really great idea, because he was trying to get his kid off the iPad or set limits, but instead of it being just something that's guaranteed, it's a privilege that has to be earned. So every time he dresses himself, he's 5 years old, every time he dresses himself, he gets a point, and each point is worth 10 minutes on the iPad. So he really has to earn it, and I think that's made a big difference in his household, so we're gonna try that.
speaking about the parenting gap, has anybody experienced, the older generation or other family members having any sort of conflict with the way that you're parenting or the way that you recommend in parenting? You know, what's the intergenerational rub here in terms of grandparents' expectations or other people's expectations as we have these, you know, younger people using technologies on planes or at the dinner table or walking around in the world?
We don't have a consensus yet as a society, and so because of that, there's a lot of back and forth on several issues in kids' health. One of them is breastfeeding. As soon as somebody brings it up, there's people on different sides of. Everybody agrees it's a good thing, but people have different opinions. Another one is circumcision, but media use is a big one, that people come up and say, you're doing it wrong. Your kid shouldn't be on it, or they should be introduced to it.
Absolutely. I even see, you know, families, you know, just trying to get the groceries done. They'll hand their kid their smartphone and then go around and do the groceries. Who knows if that's positive or negative? You know, we're not here to judge, but it's just undecided, right?
That's right. But let me tell you, that just raised the thought. One great parenting boon from the smartphone are their food apps that can be great in grocery stores for preventing arguments and meltdowns. Things like Etiquette is great. It's a little scanner. The kids can go and scan all the different foods, and it gives a letter grade. And you can say, pick out a treat that's a B or above, and you're going to get good food that way.
So you can have family participation using the technology.
And it takes the argument away from between parent and child. You're just exploring good food together.
That's a great tip, everybody. Write that down.
The other thing I think that's important, you know, when you are handing your child the phone or the iPad because you're at the grocery store, you need to get something done, is what are they doing? Because if they're just watching a show, that's just like TV. They're not really learning something from it. But if it's interactive, then there can be some educational benefits. So that's also something that you do need to pay attention to, because it does make a difference what they're doing on that phone.
So there might be a criteria that emerges, you know, in terms of here's more brain stimulating kind of things, here's more pro-social kind of training modules, for lack of a better term, and then here's just dumb time. You know, really it's not going to do anything for your kid, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I should mention also another great food program is Zipongo, and they're here. And it's amazing because you get coupons for healthy food. So you're actually physically rewarded for doing it, and it becomes a treasure hunt.
Oh, wow. That sounds fun.
I think generationally, though, when my mother, she passed away 3 years ago, but she didn't really get technology so much, but she'd be intrigued by it, and then I think she'd shake her head when she'd see my kids on it all the time. But then when she discovered certain games like poker, she started to love it. But then she and my children started playing games together, so I think that is a nice bridge and a gateway to shared experience.
What about the ease and convenience of technology? I think one of the advantages of technology and health and how they collide is around, you know, making things easier to free us up to actually spend more time with our families. Do you guys have any comments about or stories about that?
I brought along one thing that makes my life and a lot of my patients' life easier. This is a cell phone case that you can put in the ear and see what's going on. One of the mysteries that parents have, the child wakes up screaming at night, is this an ear infection, isn't it? This way you can get a magnified picture and send it to me, and we can look at it together and talk about it.
And what company is that? Can I just ask?
This one's called CellScope.
Oh, nice. Very nice.
Yeah.
That's a good tip.
You know, I tell new moms, instead of dragging your baby out to Target or Costco, you can order everything online. And almost anything that's non-perishable in my house, I order online. That way I don't have to take my kids shopping during that little time we have in the evening and on the weekends. So I think in that way, it can create a lot more family time because you can get some of the work that you have to do just out of the way, and it shows up at your front door the next day.
That's great. I think I'll try that too.
My husband turned me on to the Cozy app. Do you guys know the Cozy app? It's a family planning app, and it's amazing because it's a shared calendar, and you can basically pick who needs to go to what. There's shopping lists, there's meal planners, there's a Cozy dinner decider, where you basically just go, look, you tell me what to make. Give me 4 recipes a week based on my preferences. I'm allergic to shellfish, I'm gluten-free, et cetera, et cetera. So that has saved a lot of time and cut down on a lot of confusion because I have twins, they're right over there, and they have a lot of activities, so it's helping our families stay on track.
That's great. You know, a lot of parents and families are concerned about technology in terms of the safety risks. Everything from cyberbullying to, you know, a lot of illicit material, those kinds of things that we're trying to protect our kids from, and we're trying to have healthy families around those dimensions. What would you say is some good ways to manage the potential risks that technology presents or poses to us in this modern era?
Well, in my office, I usually recommend that families keep, computers, plugged-in computers, which aren't as common anymore, but desktops and TVs in central locations. So you don't want anything hardwired in your child's bedroom. That gives you a better idea when they're young, so you can keep an eye on it. And also when they know that you're going to be checking in on it, they're, less likely to do, things that they shouldn't be doing. And as they get older, then it can be a little more challenging, but it's up to you as a parent to make sure that you are their friend on Facebook, that you really know those social sites that they're on, and you keep an eye on it. One of the other things that I recommend, which a lot of parents don't follow, is, when your child gets older and they want that first cell phone, you don't have to buy them their own cell phone. It can be a family cell phone, so they use it when they go places, they give it to you when they come back home. And I think that's a great way to kind of ease them into the responsibility, but you still have complete access to what they're doing, and then family charging stations at night again to keep it out of the bedroom.
Any other thoughts?
No, I agree with those things very much. It's a lot about relationship and building the expectation early on that these electronics, while you're kids and while we're paying for the plans, are a family event. We get the phone bill, so we know who's texting whom. It's there. It's on the phone bill. And just make sure they know that so that it's not a shock or surprise to them. The other thing on the safety front that I'm getting a lot of questions about now are about radiation from cell phones and from iPads and things like that. And the answer there is that we don't really know for sure about that. There's some credible scientists who have done credible research raising some concerns. There's other credible scientists who've done big studies showing no concern. So I think in the meantime, it makes sense to do a few prudent things. And one of them is to minimize time, like we've been talking about. Another one is when they're on the phone to use speakerphone instead of, or earbuds instead of holding it up next to the head. And if you're using an iPad, which has a lot more of the electromagnetic radiation than a phone does, a tablet has more, to set it a little bit away. 6 inches away makes a big difference. Put it on a table instead of on your lap.
And not to wear your phone, which I see teens doing all the time in the office. The girls will carry it in their bra or in their pants, and you just don't want it on your body all the time when it doesn't need to be there.
Yeah, I really want some accessories to keep it away from my teens' bodies, because they tuck it in their pants, front or back. Yeah.
And I agree as far as computer usage goes. For doing homework or any computer usage, it should be in a common area. So you're monitoring it, and we just, as parents, it's our responsibility to keep on top of all of these controls, because our kids are going to outsmart us. It's ultimately up to us as parents.
And kind of going back to what Dr. Greene was saying about, there really are no standards right now, and so your family might function one way. Another family, if there's a sleepover situation or something like that, or they're hanging out at a birthday party, then there's other rules. Do you have any thoughts about, what we can do? And maybe there's no solution right now, but if anybody has any thoughts about that, I think that's something that's kind of on everybody's mind and everybody's challenge list.
I think in some ways it's the same as it was years ago. You want to get to know your friends, your children's parents. Mm-hmm. And before you send them over to somebody's house, there's a lot of things you're going to ask. Is there a gun in the house? Do they have any pet dogs? Are you going to be watching them? Is there anything they could get into safety-wise, like medications that they shouldn't be? Who's going to keep an eye on them? And now we also have to ask about media use. It's just one other factor.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. It used to be in most generations, whenever the kids would play with somebody, the parents did know the people. They shared a culture. And now you may have known nothing about the parents of the other family. So if it's especially if they're going to be over at their house much, it's worth having a dinner or a coffee or a glass of wine or something with the other family, and just having a relaxed way talk about things. Because often if there's a gun problem, it's going to be in a friend's home. It's not going to be in your own home. And if there is a food allergy problem, it's going to be in a friend's home and not in your own home. So it's to talk about, and media use belongs to that conversation.
I think you just have to go out on a limb and be that uncool parent, because to a teenager, they're like, right, don't call her mom. It's right, like mortifying.
Right.
But you have to.
Right.
And I always tell my parents, you can blame it on me. You can say, I'm so sorry, but my pediatrician's really annoying, and she said I have to ask these 5 questions before I let my kids go stay at your house.
So a lot of families are also getting into, I think about board games long ago, people would play board games together. Is the modern day version of that, these trackers, these Fitbits, these, sort of wearable technologies that go with apps or, competing and that kind of thing? What is your perspective, or what have you seen as the future of that, and how that, helps families to be healthier?
Well, real quick, board games are actually alive and well on tablets. A lot of families will sit around a tablet, and you can have a ton of board games and not have to have your closet stuffed with them.
That's great. Yeah.
But yeah, trackers are really cool. It's a fun way to be connected. My family, we're on several of them, but we're all on Fitbit, and it's fun because I know how many steps I've had today, but I also know from my kids and my wife.
That's great.
My kids are a little younger, so although they want one, I don't think they're ready yet, and they need to just run around and play and not be focused on how many steps I did today. However, my brother and I just bought a Fitbit for my sister, and the three of us have a little family competition now because we're trying to encourage her to get active. And so every Sunday night we total it up, and there's a few dollars involved, and it's been really fun. And last Sunday, my brother literally did not stop moving all day long because he wanted to beat me, and it was kind of just a fun family joke.
Yeah, I've heard about that. Somebody that I saw had a fuel band, and they said, feed the band. They just get really neurotically like, I gotta move, like, to get to a certain point.
I think obviously families that tend to be more active are going to gravitate towards those kinds of things, but I think, my kids are only 5, so they're a little bit too young, but I think it's an aspirational thing, so, it's not like my husband and I do that right now, but I think it's a great motivator, and we probably should, because the kids will want to do that as well, and they'll emulate us, so are you up for the challenge, Matthew?
Yes.
Well, I want to thank everybody for coming and for our wonderful panel and all the great tips and answers. You guys can go ahead. Oh, question in the audience?
Should we ask after?
Oh, you go ahead and answer right now. Yeah.
Forgive me, thank you for the presentations. I missed the beginning. My niece actually, 10 years old, in this dance studio, that they win all these awards, and it's like a very, that time in their life that it's really important to have all that peer group and everything like that. And she goes to her dance studio, and the teacher is having the next song that they're actually supposed to dance to is a song about Jack and Jill. Jack cheats on Jill. Jill pulls out a gun and shoots him.
Wow.
And so, luckily, my brother, there was a lot. The dance teacher was actually committed to doing that after my brother trying to get her to change her mind because she's this up-and-coming dance teacher who's winning these awards. Any thoughts on how technology can kind of try to balance that social change that may need to happen as far as guns and all these other issues that are being taught in dance studios?
So you're wondering if there's a technology answer in something like that where you have an inappropriate song for 10-year-olds in a dance competition. What do you guys think?
Well, I think that is very inappropriate, and I'm glad that your brother said something. And and that's happened to me too, where I've had to go to a school and say, I don't think this is appropriate, for our kids to be doing. So music, which we didn't really mention, is just something else that you do need to monitor. And if you're letting your kids listen to music on their own, or when they're performing, it's another thing that you need to be aware of. And there are, I don't know if you know about Kids Bop, but Kids Bop is a really fun group for kids. They take all the popular songs of today, it's kids singing them, they change all the words to make it appropriate. So they would even do that song, and they would totally change the words, and they have their own station now on Sirius. So my kids listen to a lot of Kids Bop, so they don't really know who the singers are and what the real words are, but that's another way that they can sort of be involved in the new music. But I think that is very inappropriate, and she should change the song.
Yeah.
How do you get
tough. So sometimes you can, so sometimes you can do it by just connecting, a one-on-one conversation, but often that doesn't work. And as Dr. Altmann was saying, that's one place a pediatrician can play a good role. If I've been asked into so many situations, could you talk to this teacher and inspire them about why there's other choices, and help them pick from a selection of things that are still really cool, but also helping to nurture the kids instead of driving them in the wrong direction.
And also reaching out to the other parents, to form a community and then approach the teacher.
The thing that popped in my mind was SurveyMonkey, do a poll of all the parents and then show the results, to the teacher, because then when she sees that she's the outlier, then the social norming power comes in and you've got her.
That's a really good idea.
Yeah. Does anybody have any other questions? All right, so thank you very, very much. Again, thank you to the panel, and please, go on and combine technology in your family and make your relationships great. Thanks. Bye.